bitches! Hey, and welcome back to the channel, everybody. How are you all doing? I hope you are ready to get your teeth into another SimTools tutorial. And what you just saw there at the beginning of the video was my motion sim going through its range of motion, my front right hand motor here. What I'm showing you there is the hard stops that I've got in place with my motion sim. We're doing a tutorial today on setting up your motors in SimTools. Goes without saying that you need to have your SMC3 utility settings all sorted out, and you need to have SMC3 utilities tuned before you start messing around with motor testing in SimTools 3. You must have SMC3 sorted out first. If you've got no idea what I'm talking about, you come to this video because you're interested in SimTools and you don't know what I'm talking about with SMC3 utilities. Click on the link in the description. So I know you're all champing at the bit to jump into a game and get it happening. In our previous videos were about how to set SimTools 3 up, how to choose your Axis assignment plugins, etc., how to set up your interface settings. But I highly recommend that we just do the next step that we should do, guys, and that is test our motors in SimTools so then we can get our limits and all that sort of stuff set up for our motion sim, so then it's safe to play a game. So we're going to be testing the motors in SimTools. How do we do this? Well, first we need to get some degrees of force set up on our axes. So as you can see here, guys, I've got axis 1A here. That is my front left-hand motor on my sim. And axis 2A here, that is my right-hand front motor that we saw operating at the beginning of the video. I need to get degrees of force assigned for these motors in SimTools. And what these degrees of force are how much that motor lever is going to move. So 20 that I've got put in here is going to be 20% of its full range of motion. And what you will also need to do, guys, is set up what your actual axes are going to be that you're going to use. Now on my front motors, I'm going to be using pitch, roll, heave and surge on those front motors. So I need to basically come along here and I need to select all of these by dropping down this menu. We did do this in the last video, but it's just a recap. That's how you set up what your different forces are going to be on whatever motors it is that you are using. With my 4 degree of freedom, pitch, roll, heave and surge is looked after by those front 2 motors. My surge rail and my traction loss are looked after by B axis assignments over here. Just pop surge in there because it wasn't in there. That's what's happening with B axis assignments. That's my second Adreno looking after the back half of my sim. A axis assignments is my first Adreno looking after the front half of my motion sim. So when we're setting these degrees of force up, once we put in our different axes, we want to make sure that we're very conservative to start with, all right? You might say, Doc, 20% is not very much when, you know, it's only going to be used 20% of 100% of what you could actually have on those motors. That's 100% correct, and I could do that. But it's going to really mess with all the other forces if we suddenly decided to try and run all of these different forces at 100%. We're going to get massive clipping in the signal, and it's going to be a mess. The literature in SimTools says basically that even if you've got a really well-tuned rig and you know your rig well, you shouldn't exceed 120% in total. Have a look down the bottom here of axis 1A. You'll see axis total here is 80% because I've got my 4 forces I use on those motors at 20% each, and I'm already at 80%. I can go to 120, so I can increase or decrease forces depending on how they're feeling when I've actually got my min-max tuning stuff sorted out. The next video, guys, is all about that one. These degrees of force are combined with what your actual telemetry is that you've captured in the min-max tuning center. When we do a live tune in the next video, you're going to see how that's all done. They work together, okay? And then filtering sort of works on top of that. When we're doing tests, first-time tests, we're going to be very conservative to start with so that we can feel our motion sim, see how things are working with the motion sim before we put too many degrees of force in and damage something on the sim or damage ourselves. Now, I just got to let you know that I don't know what's going on with SimTools 3. I've just shut this all down before, because when I was mucking around with this before I shot the video, all the motion when I'm doing these tests across all my forces here are really, really super jerky. And I thought, what's going on? I thought maybe one of my potentiometers is not moving properly, and so I'm getting all this jerky motion. So I shut it down. I went into SMC3, checked all of that. Everything was running really nicely and smoothly. Fired up SimTools 2.6, went into output testing. Beautiful, no problems. So the issue is with SimTools 3. For some reason in SimTools 3, when you do these tests and you move the slider to move your motors, it's really jerky. So that's what's happening. It's not happening in SimTools 2.6, and it's not happening in SMC3 Utilities. So I don't know what it is. It's a SimTools 3 related thing, but I'm going to persevere with it because I'm really loving the flexibility of SimTools 3 in other areas. Okay, you've put in your forces, you put in a conservative 20 degrees of force for your front motors. In B-axis assignments, you've done the same, all right? Make sure you save. Every time you make a change, make sure you save, especially when you're doing test settings, because it will not remember. If you make a change here, say I do my test at 20%, then I go, oh, I'm going to do a test at 30%, so I put them all up to 30, and I go straight into test settings and not save, it will only do what was last saved, which was 20%. Now I'm going to go back to 20% because we're starting with 20%. Make sure you save every time you change a degree of force. Now you will come into test settings. Now you're presented with these sliders. These sliders will move all of those forces that were set up in axis 1A and axis 2A, the two motors, all right? And the forces that we have that we can use are roll, pitch, heave, and surge. Now at the moment, if I try and operate my surge rail is also going to operate. Let's test this. See, so I can drop my frame down. My top frame's dropping down because I've got surge on my top frame, but my rail is also moving back. Let's center that. You center these by clicking on the cross. You can see that really jerky motion there from my front motors. It's stepping the motors for some reason back to the center. So if I want to just test my top frame in this instance, and I don't want my surge rail moving, I'd click this little tab here, stop testing. What I'd do is I'd come into axis B assignments and I would take surge out, which I'll do because we need to do that because we only want to test the top frame to start with. Make sure I save that. Now if I go back to A axis assignments, hit on test settings again, go to surge. Now I'm only getting my top frame moving down for braking, if you like, and up, say, for accelerating. Way more than I would have allocated in a game, but this is just to test the motors to make sure they're all working the way they need to work, making sure that they're inverted the way they need to be inverted for them to work as they need to work, etc. Let's have a look at pitch. So really steppy there as well. It's like one motor goes down, then the other motor goes down, the other motor comes up, then the other motor comes up. Doesn't do that in the other programs. I don't know why it's doing it in SimTools 3. Roll. The motors are acting independently from each other and the motion sim is rolling as it should. Let's go stop testing. Let's go to axis assignments. Let's up the ante. Now we'll just do pitch for today, otherwise we'll be here all day, all right? This is just giving you a demonstration of what happens when you start putting in more degrees of force and what you can expect to happen with your motors. I'll make sure I save this. Test settings, we'll just go to pitch again. And naturally I've got more pitch, okay? My motors are moving more because I'm allowing them to move 50% of their full range of motion. It's a little bit more violent. That steppy stuff comes through a lot worse because the motors have to move further. But unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast at the moment. I will message Dustin in X Simulator. I'll let him know this is happening in 3 and not in 2.6. He may have already heard about this from other people. Roll is only going to be the same because I didn't change the degrees of force there. So basically what you want to do is you want to set this up to test to your hard stops, all right? To your limitations of the sweep of your motor levers or your actuators. Getting a bit excited there just for a change. So what What am I doing next? All right, I'm going to talk about axis limiting, all right, because this sort of goes hand in hand for your test settings, right? Now, you've got software limits in SMC3 Utilities already with max clip limits and your clip limits. You can also add buffers in your axis limiting in SimTools. My motors I've got available here are 1A and 2A on my front motors, and then over on B-axis 1B and 2B surge and traction loss. I can put in buffers here. Now I'm going to squash these down quite a bit to 30% each, and I'm going to leave the 50 degrees of force on the front motors like we were just testing. All right, so I've squashed both of those motors. I've put basically axis limiting, right? I've put a band in there so they won't be able to exceed what is 70% now, all right, of their actual full range of motion. So if I go back into axis assignments, keep this on 50%, test settings, pitch down. As you can see, it's a lot gentler than what it was, and it's not going full noise. Now let's get crazy here. Let's come back in here and under pitch, let's chuck in 90% of where my motors could actually move to. But I've got a buffer in there. All right, I've got a safety zone with axis limiting. Now, it's not recommended that you use axis limiting to protect yourself with your motion sim. You should have an emergency cutoff switch as well, possibly some hard stops, but this will work as you're about to see. Now, I've got to make sure I save, go back into test settings. If I go to pitch now with these buffers in, and I'll show you the difference. I'll take the buffers out in a second. This is with our buffers in, so even at 90%, it's pretty much going to go to what the 50% was. Its axis has been limited. So let's pop out of this again, stop testing. Let's take that buffer out. I mean, what the hell? Let's throw caution to the wind. All this is going to mean is that pretty much at 90%, my motors are going to go to their hard stops, both on the bottom and on the top. And I don't want to leave them there for too long, because what's going to happen is they're going to stop on their hard stops, but the motor's going to be getting commanded by SimTools to be pushing against those hard stops. That's not good for our motor controllers. It's not good for our motors. It's not good for our wiring. So I'm only going to do this really quickly just for the purposes of the demonstration, but then I'll be zeroing that out, or I'll be hitting that X to bring those motors back to their central location. So I'm not stressing my motor controllers or my motors. In the name of science, we shall do it anyway. So I've taken that buffer out. My range can now go its full range, its full sweep in these front motors. I'm at 90% force. I'm saving to make sure that's locked in. Test settings, pitch down. Okay, I'm quickly going to go back because I don't want them pushing against those hard stops, and up. And as you can see, really bad stepping. You get the idea, guys. Axis limiting can be used there to help you set up some limitations for your travel. So then you're not exceeding safety zones on your actuators or on your wiper motors. That's what that's all about. So you would go through and you would test all of your motors, making sure that they're working, they're operating as they should be, and you're getting the motion you want without exceeding stuff. And these are just initial. I would not say that from this point you go, oh, well, my motors can go further and put more degrees of force in. You need to wait until you've done a proper min-max tuning capture. Then you need to blend that with your degrees of force. You will even do a little bit of blending in the min-max tuning center. It can be done manually as well as doing a live capture from the game. And then you might want to add some filters here and there. So they're going to be in the videos to come, guys. But this is how you go around testing your motors, finding out basically where your limitations are on your motors within SimTools after you've got SMC3 Utilities sorted out first. If this video has been helpful, do not forget, guys, to like and subscribe. And until I see you in the next video where we're doing some live tuning in game, capturing that juicy telemetry for our motion sim, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and take it easy out there.